Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of the Annuity Show. And we're going to have an interesting discussion around one of our passion topics, fees and value that consumers and clients receive from it. Ramsey, welcome.
Paul, great to be here.
Yeah, it looks like you're not in your usual location.
I'm not in Atlanta. I'm in an undisclosed location here in Manhattan.
Excellent. All right. Well, hopefully we can connect. We've been going back and forth. It'd be great to see you actually in person. Bruno, welcome as a regular host of our show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Yeah. And hey, congratulations on your new role. So tell us, what you're doing these days.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. And no, I started a role as a principal at LifeWorks. It's an employee benefits consulting firm in Canada. And I'm very happy to say that I joined a very talented team, and the whole story on retirement income continues. I'll be involved in some of the pension risk transfer transactions, as well as some new retirement/lifetime income solutions. So very happy to join that team.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, and I was actually out in Las Vegas for 4 days last week at InsurTech Connect, and it's really interesting. A lot of the people we've been talking to over the last couple of years were out there, and it was tremendous to see the energy going into the retirement planning arena from a technology standpoint, from an advisor standpoint. A lot of advisors out there, talking about the startups they've launched and stuff. And hey, listen, today we're lucky enough to have another guest who has got a really interesting background and brings kind of a wealth of experience to both clients and advisors, and I think will to our listeners as well. And I'd like to welcome Andy Panko, who is the owner and financial planner of Tenon Financial in New Jersey. Andy, welcome.
Hi. Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and can you just tell people a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am a solo RIA operation based in New Jersey. Firm name is Tenon Financial. I do financial planning and investment management all together in one combined offering, specifically working with people, traditional in or near retirement folks. My differentiator is really strong tax knowledge, tax focus, and get very hands-on and in the weeds with tax planning around distributions, Medicare surcharges, Affordable Care Act credits if people are on Affordable Care Act, Roth conversions, et cetera, and tie it all together and do it all for a flat fee that is not just percent of assets.
Okay, flat fee that's not just a percentage of assets. Ramsey, what do you think of that?
I think that's an important business model for the future in financial planning. One of the things that we face, certainly as folks that are in the insurance industry, is that a lot of the products and solutions that we provide to people, don't compensate the way many financial planners or financial advisors are used to getting compensated. Without getting into the debate over commissions versus AUM fees, which less, it's just different. And a flat fee structure brings with it the potential for pure objectivity. And from my perspective, in a world where we're looking for incentive structures that allow for the possibility of best interest advising, I think flat fees are marvelous for that. So I'm a big fan.
Thank you. And that was my thoughts as well. And one of the reasons why when I set out and started this business in 2019, and I was planning it for about 3 years prior, so I really thought through with intention what I wanted it to be, how I wanted to charge, what I wanted to offer, who I wanted to work with, et cetera. I couldn't make sense of percent of assets. I know the majority of the industry does that. And it's just, I worked in institutional investments in banking for the better part of 20 years prior to doing this, and was in and around the percent of asset model, and just knew enough to know that the amount of work or effort or resources or expertise or complexity involved in managing $3 million versus one, it's not close to linear. And asset size is a terribly random indicator of the value provided, the expertise needed, the resources, the time, et cetera, et cetera. So my thought was, I have a very clear focus of who I want to work with, what my services are going to be. I'm going to intentionally turn away anyone that's outside this sort of custom crafted avatar, if you will, of the scenario and client type I want to work with. They're all going to more or less want and need the same services, have the same general pain points and planning opportunities, et cetera. Asset size, frankly, has nothing to do with it. So why charge on that? Let me come up with a fee that I think is fair for what I do, what I provide. It's loosely based on hours. Also kind of roughly benchmarked to what would they be paying my typical ideal client, what would they be paying under percent of assets model. So make sure I'm not straying too far from that. And that's what I came up with. And it's been it's working out really well. Clients like it. I like it. It's not conflict free. I'll be the first to say no fee model is conflict free, but I feel it's a lot more logical and mutually fair, and has less flaws and less conflicts than something like percent of assets.
So I actually want to touch on that if we could, because I think the first thing you said, which is that there's no version of compensation that doesn't have some kind of conflicts.
Right.
Right. So in this model, what do you see as the conflicts, and how do you address them?
The conflict is I charge now $8,400 a year for single folks, $9,600 for married. I can, in theory, just sit with my feet up on the desk and that money's coming in. Now, the client's always free to fire me and go separate ways. So they can always, if they feel they're not getting enough value out of me, or they feel I am messing around and not doing anything, then they can simply cut ties and stop paying me. But, that's sort of the conflict, where the money's always coming in unless I really horrendously fail the client by some way, in which case then they're going to leave. So not to say it doesn't incentivize me to work. I mean, there's always the incentive. You want to work, you want to provide value, you want to show the client you're doing something for them. So I still have that. But, just to be fair, there is the conflict that the fee is the fee. It's always going to show up until they fire me.
Sure. Well, I think you're being modest, a bit generous, right? Or being a bit modest in that at the end of the day, you're just justifying an explicit fee every year, and there's a conversation, it sounds like, and AUM fees just sort of slip into the returns, right? And sometimes aren't as visible. So
yeah, and AUM fees are goofy in a lot of ways. So advisors get more. I mean, let's call it what it is. Vast majority of advisors don't have any special mojo or secret sauce when it comes to picking investments and outperforming the markets. We all know that. There's endless amounts of research that show that. Yet when markets go up, advisors make more, all else equal, simply because the market went up. It's just beta. It's not advisor magic. It's not advisor special service. It's simply beta. And oftentimes when markets are good and chugging along, people don't have problems. Clients aren't reaching out, oh my God, what are we going to do, et cetera. Now's the opposite. Now markets are down 20, 30%. Advisors getting paid, all else equal, 20 to 30% less. Clients are more on edge, reaching out. If nothing else, there's more calls and emails you have to field to talk with clients and, walk them off the ledge, things like that. And there's more planning opportunities like tax loss harvesting or doing Roth conversions when things are down. So there's a real strong logical argument to be made that advisors work more, do more, provide more value when assets are down and they're getting paid less than the opposite. So, for that, amongst a host of other reasons, just percent of assets is such a goofy, silly, arbitrary, almost backward way to charge, in my opinion, for the reasons I mentioned.
Fascinating. So yeah, it's the more phone calls come in, the less you make. Commission structures are fascinating. I ran commissions for an insurance company for about a year and a half. That was 2 years. That was an interesting experience. I mean, I learned a lot. You have an institutional background. Tell us a little bit about that, and how does that how has that shaped your practice with individuals?
Sure. So all of my experiences that almost had but didn't shaped my views, my practice, what I do now. So going all the way back, I graduated college in 2000, went to school for finance, wanted to be an advisor, not knowing what it was, just wanted to help people with money. It was that simple. I interviewed at a lot of the large places who were on campus, namely large insurance companies and the big wirehouses, and quickly got turned off. This was, again, 20-something years ago, so there's much more of a perverse sales culture, AUM gathering culture, sell this loaded mutual fund culture then than there is now. And, the common denominator with all those things I was interviewing for was just sell, sell, sell. And I never wanted to do sales in the traditional sense. So I got turned off by that and gave up on the idea of being an advisor. Stumbled into an actuarial job at a major insurer, on the corporate side, not advising at all. And it was cool. It did that. I was at a major insurance company in the US for 4 years, put myself on my own rotation while I was there. I wanted to see and do different things, super young and eager and wanted to learn. So in the 4 years I was there, I had 4 different roles. One was an actuary role. One was helping manage a general account. One was securities lending. And the 4th one was private placement credit research. So saw dramatically different areas of the insurance world, but learned a boatload in that relatively short time about insurance and investments and et cetera. Got my MBA while I was there. I went part-time. The company I was at paid for it. They paid 90%. So I was working while going to school. With MBA in hand, I left. There was no requirement to stay, even though they paid for the majority of it. So I left, went to a large Japanese global bank to do counterparty derivative credit research. So basically, the bank was trading foreign exchange, interest rate derivatives, and credit default swaps with other banks, hedge funds. And I would do the analysis of how much risk and exposure are we comfortable taking to the banks and these hedge funds with these derivative products we're trading. Did that for a few years, moved to market risk, analyzing the risk of those same products, interest rate derivatives, foreign exchange, credit default. And then bounced around a few other large banks, all more or less doing the same sort of counterparty credit analysis, where majority of my career was we would do derivative trades and or lend money through prime brokerage to hedge funds, private equity funds, finance like activist position trades and all sorts of funky equity trades and foreign exchange and rate derivatives. So in all that, got tremendous exposure to, working with investment managers, doing due diligence on their traders, their portfolio managers, their financing desks, their treasury desks, their operations, and just really learned the inner workings of investing and the products behind it. Couple that with the insurance experience I had, where I saw how the sausage is made in managing the general accounts and how actuaries price and create things. And so all that helped form this sort of deeper level of knowledge and understanding about a lot of the products and strategies belying retail financial advising. So coming back full circle, it was 2015 or 16, still doing the institutional thing, long commute in and out of Midtown Manhattan, long hours, stressful days. I was like, I don't want to do this another 20 years. Made good money, worked with some great folks, saw some incredibly cool, funky things, but just, I don't want to do this, that much longer. I always had this itch to work with individuals directly. I thought that'd be more fulfilling and satisfying as opposed to helping a hedge fund make more money in the trades. I want to help individuals make meaningful decisions in their lives. So I don't know exactly how, but I came across the XY Planning Network's podcast. And that blew the lid off for me. That's where they started interviewing, every week a different financial advisor who's focusing on working with Gen X or Gen Y and has alternate fee structures, service models. They do hourly service, et cetera. It's not just sell product. It's not just gather assets is where I'm going. And hearing other people's stories that, wow, you can do advising and planning the way you think it should be done. That was it. Like I was hooked. That then reinvigorated me to be like, yep, let me revisit this financial advising thing, but let me do it on my terms. I want to work for myself. I don't want to work at a big place anymore. I did that for 20 years. I don't want to commute. I want to work with individuals, but work with people I want to work with, provide services I want to provide, charge how I want to charge. I don't want to be hamstrung to have to do % of assets or only sell product. And it all sort of came together with me launching my business 2019, how I want to do it, with who I want to do, how I want to charge. And it's thankfully been everything I thought it would be in the, almost 3 years now. So I dropped a lot on you. I'll leave it there for now.
No, that's great. I mean, it's an interesting journey, right? And I think I think your clients are lucky to have you.
Thank you.
I mean, I got to say, like, that is a very broad background and a lot of depth in a lot of areas. And so I ran a derivatives desk for 20 years. So I had conversations with someone in that role, discussing capacity like every day. So
that was me.
So much of what you did, I have a very strong understanding of like what it takes to be good at that. And like, so I think about all you've done. Plus, you said, you're focused on tax. Like, you walk into a planning conversation with someone with just way more tools than your average planner's going to have, and because they don't teach all that stuff in the CFP, right?
No, definitely not.
So I guess two questions. Like, how are you leveraging that to get, I guess, to sort of beat out the competition, given that you've got these extra tools? And the other piece, and this is sort of one of the things that I always wonder when one goes from institutional to individual, do the individuals kind of understand, how much depth you have? How do you sort of communicate to them that stuff that like that so many other people just would never have had the opportunity to touch? That's one of the toughest things in my view that I've seen.
Yeah, and that's $1 million question for advisors. How do you market? How do you get in front of people? You can be the best, most technically proficient, most perfect advisor there is. If you can't get in front of people, it doesn't matter. You have no business. I sort of got lucky, sort of had some intention in how I got my exposure and myself in front of people was through a Facebook group I created called Taxes in Retirement. And so I started my business November 2019. I was doing traditional marketing stuff, local library seminars, taking centers of influence out to lunch, trying to get published in some U.S. news articles and things like that. And none of those really seemed to click, or at least not immediately. And then pandemic happened a few months later, and world stopped, and there's no more in-person lunches or seminars or whatever. And so I'm like, all right, now what? So I started this Facebook group. I had nothing else to do. I was locked in my house. I was like, let me just get online, try to get exposure to people by way of a group, invite people to join. I'd answer their questions. I'd share helpful, insightful things about retirement planning with a tax focus to it. And Ramsey, to your point, like, I try to be modest, but I know my stuff really well from a technical perspective. I know I have this depth from my previous career that the vast majority of retail advisors don't and probably never will. So I know the knowledge is there. And I know I could explain and educate well, even these technical concepts. So I thought a Facebook group could be a great outlet for me to do that, because it's this sort of iterative, collaborative, people show up, I'm there, you ask questions, I answer, blah, blah, blah. And that's what happened. So people would ask a question about whatever, Roth conversions or Medicare or something. And I would give this really long, super thorough, detailed answer, not crossing the line. I'm never giving specific advice. Like, I'm not recommending investments, but answering questions about how taxation works on this or that or the other. That's what I did. And people would frequently respond like, wow, A, that was a quicker response than I ever got from my advisor. And B, my advisor doesn't even know that. And I'm like, I'm giving it away for free. And I'm like, I'm onto something here. And so more and more people kept joining, more and more questions were asked, more and more questions I answered. And I started doing live videos every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern in June of 2020 about different topics, retirement related with a tax focus. And more people started showing up live to watch those. They'd ask me live Q&A. I'd answer on the fly. And I think that level of engagement and just seeing people just randomly pepper me with questions and me knowing most of the answers, sometimes, if I don't, I'll tell them. And just seeing my thought process and how I articulate and elaborate and how I explain, to answer your question, that's how I got in front of people. And because it's Facebook, it's got this global reach, but it's not bound by being in a certain geography or however many people are, butts and seats at the library seminar I'm doing. It's Facebook. There's now 30,000+ people in this group and growing by the week. So that's where I got my exposure. And that was a perfect outlet for me in my strong suits of answering questions, demonstrating what I know, and just helping share information with folks.
30,000.
Okay.
Well
it's
done.
like 33, but yeah, who's counting?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Bravo.
so okay, this kind of reframes okay. So
There's a lot there, Paul, right? There's like,
there's
there's so many layers to this.
Now, just to kind of level set, because we talked a little bit about your practice beforehand. I've seen you in there. It's like kind of interesting. Like on LinkedIn, and I'm active on LinkedIn. It's kind of, you get this sort of swirl, right? I see your name pop up, and I'm okay. He's in here. Okay. Talked to Sarah Grillo. She's been on a couple of times. I've seen you going back and forth on here. So 2019, okay, pandemic hits. You're just starting your practice, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now you get on Facebook, you build this 33,000 member Facebook page, and now fast forward to 2022. Tell me if this is correct. You're charging $8,000 on average, about around $8,000 or $9,000 per plan, and you can't take any more clients. Is that correct?
I don't want to take more clients. So when I set out, I had a very clear goal of what I wanted this business to look like, what I wanted my personal life to look like as it relates to the business. Coming from 2 decades of the rat race grind, again, big commute, shackled to an office, a chair from 8 to 6 every day, super stressful days. I didn't want that. I wanted the antithesis of that. So I wanted to create a solo practice. Some would call it a lifestyle. I'm hesitant to use that word because that has negative connotations by people who don't understand what a lifestyle practice means. A lifestyle practice where I have 40 to 50 clients, ongoing clients that I like. Hopefully they like me. Hopefully I serve well. And that's it. You can do the math on the money, how much I'm grossing for that many clients. And my expenses are about 30 grand all in. So I'm making plenty good enough money. I enjoy what I do. I'm not overburdened or stressed. There's a handful of times throughout the year I do semi-annual meetings. So in those months that I do my meetings cluster together, I'm busier then than otherwise. But I have a very flexible, good life, good work-life balance. I enjoy my personal life, my professional life. I get paid plenty well enough. I'm not motivated by money. It'd be nice if people gave me more, but that's not what I'm out for. So I don't want more clients. I can accommodate another 10, if I wanted to, but I'm cool where I'm at. I got 45 clients. There's another 2 or 3 I suspect will trickle in over the next handful of months, people that I've had calls and talks with over the past year. If they do, great. If they don't, I'm still all right. So I'm good. Like my business is done growing. I know what it takes to hire, to grow. And I know that's a bell that can't be unrung. Once you hire people, you then need to give them focus and career development and motivation and a track and, increasing wages throughout time. Me, I do flat fee. If I lose a client and I lose $9 grand of revenue, I'm okay, right? I don't feel the need to backfill. If I have employees, I can't have that attitude. Like then it needs to be about money to some extent because I need to pay them and still make myself something in return. So I'm just, at this point, I don't want to hire, I don't want to grow. I'm freely giving away all additional prospects. Right on my business website, I have a list of referrals to like 25 other advisors who are all flat fee retirement focused. I'm just freely, I have this big funnel of prospects and people finding me through Facebook, through YouTube now as well. But I'm closed for business. So here you go. I'm just, giving them away to other folks who are on this flat fee journey. Okay. I'm going to give Bruno a chance here in just a second. So I just got to, so people think Facebook, hey, who's selling, on Facebook, I'm selling stretch pants. What's the company that had a Netflix documentary about it? No, it was Lululemon.
Lululemon.
No, yes.
Was it Lulu? No, it's something that sounds like that, but it's like a
multi-level
Lululemon, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. People see Facebook Live, I think Lululemon, but yet did most of your clients find you through Facebook, or did they find them from people on Facebook who recommended you? And what is there anything in common with these people, like geography, or are they? Just tell us kind of like what does your clientele generally look like?
Yes, the vast majority of the 45 clients I have found me through Facebook. Some aren't on Facebook, and they found me through YouTube because the live videos I did weekly on Facebook, I drop the replays onto my YouTube channel after the fact. So some people, I have 3 that found me through YouTube. I'm also a Are you familiar with Roger Whitney? Have you heard of him? The Retirement Answer Man podcast? Okay.
No.
He's got a really large retirement podcast. He's got a paid membership group called the Rock Retirement Club, where I'm one of the sort of adjuncts / coaches in there. So some of the members from there have ultimately hired me. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, Facebook really is the nexus of where all my business and exposure came from.
Wow. Bruno.
Yeah, no, well done, and that's
Thank you.
That's great. I want to take the discussion where in a place where a lot of people don't focus too much, don't talk about too much, in the context of retirement income planning, longevity, and that's bequest. Like, how do you view bequest? How do you advise your clients on bequest? Do you advise them on having a certain goal, or just be that wild card that is out there? And my follow-up is definitely going to be on on the tax consequences and how do you strategize there. But just conceptually, how does that conversation go with your clients and their desires towards bequest?
Towards legacy planning and leaving people stuff.
Or not. I'm not saying that
right,
they should or not, but how does that conversation go?
I find a lot of it's or not, actually. Maybe it's coincidence, but when I meet with people, even as part of the prospect process, one of the things I'd ask is, do you have any legacy goals, desires or requirements to leave money to family, friends, charities, whatever? And vast majority of my clients, the answer is no. It's like my primary goal is to not run out. Whatever I have left, great. My kids can have it, or I'll leave it to a charity. I only have a few clients of my 45 where there is some sort of meaningful legacy or bequest or bequeath, whatever. I know what you're talking about, but leaving money, legacy, yeah. One of them is a special needs case where they have a second to die life insurance policy that's going to fund a special needs trust. Another one is charitably inclined, and we worked to set up a donor advised fund as part of it. And not that it's really legacy. I mean, that's giving away money during life, but I really don't have a lot. Now, I guess if someone did have a strong burning desire, there's a few things you can do. You can do like cash value life policy or a whole life policy to make sure it's there. You can simply just earmark it, put it in an account that you don't touch, and kind of take it out of the financial planning considerations. I mean, those are the main ones, I suppose.
Well, so basically, you come up with a dynamic where if people are retiring, if they die very early, they'll leave a significant legacy behind them, and if they die very late, they may leave nothing. But there's a major gap there, and that's that's generally an accepted way of planning, and that's to your point. I think you mentioned you certainly never want to leave negative bequest where
right.
That would essentially be running out of money and just be a burden for your kids. But that's typically the general the general dynamic there.
And it also depends how passionate people feel about leaving money. So there's also, you mentioned tax planning considerations around this. Some people don't care about taxes. They're like, if I die and I leave a $2 million fully taxable IRA to my kid who's already in the 37% tax bracket, good for him or her. Like, so what? Let them pay the tax, right? They're getting something they didn't have to start with. So I don't care. I'll be gone. Other folks do have this inherent desire to sort of stick it to the man a little bit, stick it to Uncle Sam. And they do have more consideration for tax efficiency of wealth transfer. So for example, if they know they have more money than they're ever going to spend down, and they know a lot of it's going to go to their kid, and let's say their kid's a starving artist, then in that case, if they have like tax deferred IRA money, they'll probably leave it to the kid, let the kid pay taxes, because the kid will pay taxes than the client would during their life. Or vice versa. Going back to the example of the kid's, high earning doctor, always going to be top tax rate. The client, the parents, are in the 22% federal bracket, let's say. and they are concerned about maximizing the net after-tax amount of what's left to the kid, then we talk more about conversions. Let the client pay taxes on the money in life, even though they're not going to need it. Let them pay taxes on it, so it's all in a Roth. So when they die, that Roth then goes tax-free to the child in the high tax bracket. So it really all depends on client circumstances and their emotions and views towards taxes.
Okay. Hey, just switching gears a little bit. I saw you on Stan, the Annuity Man's podcast. Stan's great. In full disclosure, he's actually one of our business partners. He's great, and we appreciate the business we've done with our carrier with him. Tried to get him on the Annuity show. He has yet to accept the offer. Where does annuities fit with your clientele? Are they too young? Do you have any strong feelings about annuities? If you were going to sell them or offer them to clients, what would they look like? What's the criteria?
Yep. It all depends. Like an annuity, like anything, is a tool. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. I feel my view of retirement planning is sort of best of both worlds. Using Wade Pfau speak, there's a probability-based approach. There's a safety-first approach, where safety first is lock up, your income through annuities, maybe to a lesser extent, cash value life insurance. Probability-based is pure, just like let the markets do their thing. Some people lean really hard in their views and preferences towards one of the clients. Towards one or the other. Some people are like, tell me whatever I should do that's best for me. I try to be pragmatic about it. I don't sell insurance. That was a conscious decision. I am fee only. It's not because I don't think insurance products are important. It's just me and my beliefs. I want to have that distinction between the advice giver and the one who consummates the sale. I'm not belittling or demonizing people who do one versus the other, but that's my approach towards things. But realizing insurance products are important, what I've done is there are some folks I work with who are agents for annuities or life. I am on some fee-only platforms, such as Lincoln has one, DPL has one. So if and when the time comes where I feel either a life insurance product or an annuity is in the best interest of the client, I have folks I can reach out to or places I can go direct to help shop around. Now, my view is, going back to I try to blend the best of both worlds. I think Social Security is the best annuity anyone could ever have. So a core tenet of my planning is to make sure people maximize that for their scenarios. To the extent someone has traditional defined benefit pension, same story. Let's get the most out of that. I kind of have the view that you generally want to make sure your anticipated necessary expenses throughout retirement are covered by guaranteed secure income, of which there's only three sources: Social Security, pension, or annuity. If it's not, then that's when we start to consider, okay, maybe we plug that gap with an annuity. Now, what's the best option or product out there to get you that? And that's where I go to my network and my platforms to start feeling around. Some clients have so many assets, even if they don't have enough guaranteed income to support their anticipated necessary expenses, they have so many assets that it doesn't matter. Like, they're never going to burn through them. In that case, we don't bother paying for the guarantee of an annuity unless they're ultra conservative and specifically demand it. I don't know. It's some various thoughts there, but
so out of 45 clients, this is very interesting because the framework you're talking about is the exact right one, right? At least certainly in my view. That so then out of 45 clients where you're using this framework, what percentage of them would end up being put in an annuity? And the reason I say that is, like, this is an interesting sort of sandbox where you're outside of the persuasion zone where people are trying to sell. And on the other side, you're outside of the other side of the persuasion zone where people are just trying to get AUM fees. Yeah. So we got the right decision-making process. You've got this sample size of 45 clients, right? Like, what is it? Is it 10%, 20%, 30%? Like, what percentage of clients end up using an annuity?
Honestly, most of my clients, and this is probably a result of my fee structure, have more assets than they're going to need. And I don't want to think they're hiring me because I'm the cheap guy. Someone $3 million is going to be paying 20, 30 grand at most other advisors versus I'd be 9,600. And I can say with confidence, my service is most likely better, yet it's cheaper. Again, it's not cheap. I feel I'm the right fee. I feel they're overcharging in that case. So anyway, a lot of my clients have a few $1 million, which is more than their likely going to come close to spending down. So it's not that prevalent. I do have some clients that have existing annuities that they have from before we started working together. In some cases, we have kept them. That is folded into their part of their income plan. Another case, we did have it surrendered. Recently now, with the markets doing what they're doing, people have been more concerned, have been questioning more, do I want or need secured income? Which I'm sure you're not surprised. When markets are humming along, everything was great. No one wants to hear anything about paying for an annuity where even if I live till 90, I'll get maybe a 4-something% IRR on it, right? If I die before that, it's a terrible deal on the surface. And I try to explain to people, don't view it as an investment. You can't really look at IRR. It's longevity insurance. You buy it for guarantee, stability, certainty, knowing the paycheck's going to be there, et cetera. But still, that's a tough sale a year ago when markets were red hot and everyone's like, I'm making money hand over fist. As much as I said to folks, this isn't going to last. And rates were low and payouts weren't great on annuities, right? I did condition folks to say, this stock market's not going to last. I don't know when, but it's got to turn at some point. So here we are, a year later. Now, with markets down, people are sort of naturally more interested in, oh my God, what do I do? Let's do something. Should we get into an annuity? Just cut my losses, get rid of the variability going forward. So we've had more conversations. There's 2 clients I've had that talk with. I didn't sell them. I said, here's one alternative to riding out investments. I still think investments will come back. We're positioned well for sequence of return. They have cash buffers, right? We got this sort of bucket thing going on. So we're doing all the things we should do from a traditional probability-based retirement planning perspective, but certain clients are much more sensitive to down markets and how that potentially impacts them. So anyway, to put numbers to it, Ramsey, I don't know. MYGAs as sort of a cash savings tool. A few have done. Beyond MYGAs and actually buying, whether it's a SPIA or just a deferred annuity that we plan on annuitizing or getting a withdrawal rider on, haven't yet had anyone purchase yet since working with me, but the conversations come up in the last 6 months.
Okay. Two kind of twin questions here for you. General questions are always really tough. You potentially probability, you can use all the words you need to here for compliance purposes. But okay, I'm in my 50s. I've got a sizable, decent sized 401k. Open up the paper. Inflation, gas prices are coming down, but inflation's still up there. I just see the Russians blowing up potentially blowing up a fuel pipeline. I see the meltdown in the bond market. Andy, I got this plan. What kind of changes should I be making? Do you have any top three ideas or concepts or recommendations you're giving to people right now?
No. As bad as it might sound on the surface, I still feel the plans we put together for people were well thought out, well constructed. They knew eventually downturn's going to happen. Here it is. And it's human nature to want to feel, I got to do something. I got to sell. I got to change. I got to whatever. The best response I can give people is don't just do something, stand there. I don't know if you've heard, I don't know who said it, but I think it's brilliant. When you feel the need to do something just because there's so many clickbaits and noise and news bites about whatever, the plan is built for this. Now, it's super painful to watch. I thought that was off. I'm not saying it's not when someone looks at their balances and stock markets are down 20, 25%, depending on what you're talking about. Aggregate bond market's down 12, 13% for the year. Stock market doesn't surprise me. The bond market, that took everyone by surprise. Not that we didn't know the risk was there. If you know about the ratio, you know this can happen. But the extent and the quickness with which rates have risen has really been a slap in the face. But anyway, my view is, and for people that are okay with the view, we're carrying on. For people that aren't okay with the view, those are the ones where we have the annuity conversation. We're like, I get it, Andy. I don't care what you say. I want out. Then, okay, fine. Then we start to consider whatever happened up to this point. It is what it is. Now we put the guarantees in place. You maybe shoot yourself in the foot, if and when the rebound happens in 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, then you may come back and be like, oh man, why'd I do that? But we discuss all the pros and cons now and make the best decision. So anyway,
okay.
no dramatic changes. One thing I have started doing is people's fixed income portion, instead of just a total bond market fund, starting to layer in some T-bills, because yields are 4%, give or take, as a portion of their fixed income. A year ago, T-bill yields were a joke. There was really no reason to lock up money at 0.5% or whatever. Now, slightly different story. But that's the only real sort of change I've kind of done with folks so far.
Okay, last one, then I'll have Bruno and Ramsey give you their best question. They're going to be tough, so
sure.
Get ready for this. I'm an advisor. Oh my gosh, we built this great practice 3 years off of Facebook. How do I future-proof my practice?
In what sense? Like specifically to me or other advisors?
Could be. I'm just talking. I'm somebody who calls you up and says, "I love what you've done. You've clearly taken some very conscious decisions around fee structures, number of clients, how you're building prospects, what you're doing within the industry. Is there any just sort of big piece of advice you give advisors who may talk to you?"
Honestly, the advisors who seek me out is more about fee structures, people who want to get into a flat fee setup, whether they're starting their own thing or they're at a place that wants to try to transition. Percent of assets isn't going away. It'll be here longer than all of us. But anecdotally, I do see a lot more change in views, change in preference from advisors and consumers alike to start moving away from percent of assets. It's not going to be this dramatic overnight switch where all the wirehouses now wake up tomorrow and start doing flat fees. But I do see lots of advisors trying to change over. Namely, the younger ones are the ones trying to start their own thing because they're doing it for the right reasons. So my advice is percent of assets isn't going away, but definitely be aware other fee structures, other service offerings. If you're not doing tax planning, if you're overcharging under a basic percent of assets model, someone might start eating your lunch, and don't be surprised if that happens over the next 10, 20 years.
Bruno, thoughts, question?
I usually start with that because that gets the conversation going, but that sounds like a little backwards. But how do you view income in retirement? Do you use the 4% rule? Do you mentioned the weight vow, two basic approaches. You mentioned the three stools. In aggregate, all marbles considered, how do you plan on total income for each year for a newly retired?
That's a tough one in that there is no single rule of thumb or process or formula that works. I do use traditional financial planning software that does project out cash flows of anticipated income and expenses and backs into assumed portfolio withdrawals and does a Monte Carlo based on that. You can tweak it, kick it however you want. 4% rule, tremendously flawed. I know it well, studied it a lot, know what it does, but in reality, no one lives a simple, pretty linear, consistent annual distribution life. It's at least a good back of the envelope starting point. So for example, someone's 65, they retire, they got 50,000 of Social Security between, spouses, and their total expense needs are, let's say 80. So they got a 30,000 shortfall. Multiply that by 25. And that's the starting point of how many investable assets you should have if you want to do a pure probability based 30-year distribution on that. Then you're in the ballpark, right? If your assets fall far short of that 25 number, and 25 is just the reciprocal of 4%. If your assets are far short, you got to rethink this plan. There's a decent chance you may run out. If your assets are comfortably above that, there's really no reason to think, barring lawsuit or, not having proper protections in place about umbrella insurance and someone breaking their neck on your sidewalk and suing you for $2 million or something. Just from a pure distribution standpoint, you should be fine. If you want to take some of that should be fine away, then you can start layering in some annuities. And this is where I sort of trip myself up overthinking it, I think, is even with annuities, if you take all of your assets and pump it into annuities with guaranteed payments, with certainty what your payments are going to be. borrowing default to the insurer, but even then there's state backstop. So let's assume you still get paid. But that doesn't mean it's riskless. What if inflation persists at 8-9% for 10 years? Do any annuities, newly written annuities, even have traditional COLAs anymore on their payments? Like, I don't think so, to my knowledge, right?
No.
Social Security.
Which is why it's the best annuity there is, and make the most of it. So, even going the pure annuity route isn't riskless. So it's always going to be this mixed. You can never solve with finite certainty that someone will be okay or will not. I sort of triangulate. I do things like the 4% rule as a ham-handed starting point. Monte Carlo under various twists and tweaks. I know that's just guessing the future, using the past as a predictor. So I know it's flawed, but it's sort of the closest thing we got to a crystal ball, if you will. And even just sort of basic math. Like I had a conversation with a client the other day. Do I have enough? I looked at, well, you need X amount of dollars per year. You have Y amount of dollars in your investment account, even though it's down 20%. That's a 2% withdrawal rate for the next 35 years. I don't know that anyone can realistically argue that a 2% withdrawal rate isn't safe. Like dividends and interest alone throw off 2% for her. So for her, I'm like, I don't need the fancy tools. You're good. So that's a simple scenario. The constrained investor, in market speak, that's more difficult. And that's where you can't pinpoint it. Even if you do go the safety first thing, there's still some element of unknown future risk that you can't quite solve for. So you just kind of have to look at all the different angles, approach it from different ways, whether it's Monte Carlo, 4%, just basic ticking and tying of cash flows, and revisit every year. Even in retirement, these plans are always moving targets, always dynamic. So you really have to kind of keep re-upping if their expenses change, if their life circumstances change, if inflation changes, their plans will change. You have to be adaptable to it. Very long-winded answer, sorry, but it's a great question, but not one that I think has a succinct 100% right answer.
You're good, Ramsey.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So I think I already asked my tough questions, and I think that I hope that future proofing in this space, it means coming at it the way Andy does, right? First of all, with sort of a broader background, the right incentive structure around flat fees, and then sort of a clear understanding of where the real value add is. And your comment earlier about getting paid 1% a year for just providing beta, right? Beta comes for free or very close to it. It should. You can get it for 4 basis points at Vanguard, right? So but all the rest of it, right? The tax decisions, all the other all of the planning work that you talk about, that's where the real value add is. And so clarity on that, making sure you're getting paid for that. I hope that is the future of what this industry looks like.
It seems clear the industry is going more towards planning and away from just investment management, because that's become cheap, easy, and commoditized to do and do well. But just one sort of final thought from me is I can't stand when advisors say my value is going to be at least X dollars, or my value will be at least double my fee, implying you can quantify your value. You can't. For example, claiming Social Security, tremendous amount of value in helping someone get that decision right for them based on what you know at the time. But you don't know until years after the fact, was it ultimately the right decision? So for example, if I work with a single person anticipated to live till 90, the answer is going to probably be delay your Social Security to 70. What if she dies at 68, get hit by a truck out of the blue? She's financially worse off because she would have spent down a lot more assets in delaying Social Security. Less goes to her kids or her charity or her whatever. So in hindsight, that decision cost that client potentially tens of thousands of dollars of missed Social Security. That doesn't mean I didn't add value. It was the right decision at the time. But let's not pretend we can quantify the value in these more abstract, subjective things like financial planning, like decision making, like the comfort we provide in helping someone sleep better at night. You can't. So let's get off this thing that percent of assets is a way to determine value. It's so not. Flat fee is not even. Knowing I can't quantify the value and people will perceive value differently. I can do the same thing for client A versus client B. Client B may think it's the best thing ever. Client A may be like, whatever. So how do I attempt to charge on value? you can't. So charge on what you do know. Hours spent, resources provided, level of expertise needed, et cetera, et cetera. That's why I think this fee structure makes sense. That's why I think it's a fee structure of the future. Hence, maybe it can help you future-proof your practice, but that may be too bold of a statement to say.
This is great. This is terrific. Andy, so how do people find your Facebook group, your YouTube channel, your site, or follow your writings?
Best way probably is just go to my business website, teninfinancial.com. That's TENON financial.com. I have a free resources section that has links to all my social spots, plus a bunch of other free handouts I made. There's no lead capture. Just click and it downloads. You don't have to give your name or email. All sorts of fun stuff there for advisors alike, not just clients, but advisors alike can get a lot of value out of it. So there you go.
Awesome. All right. Hey, thanks so much, Ramsey, Bruno, Andy, and thanks for all our listeners. Give us feedback. Tell us who we should have on, and give us questions. So thanks, and join us again next week for another episode of That Annuity Show.
Thank
you. Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.